So let my life be the proof of your love. Let my love look like you and what you made.
Tonight we're going to be looking at another attribute of God, that He is infinite. Why is that important? We know it's important, right? We know it's important, but why is that important? Well, deep down in our hearts, I suspect, and I'm pretty sure, pretty certain, that we all know that people want something from us. They need something from us. And because we know that, there's a certain posture, a certain defensiveness, a certain suspicion that we have. Because all through life, people are needy. Whether it's our spouse, our children, our parents, though we don't want to admit it, our parents were needy, and deep down we know. And so we carry that over, or can carry that over to God. That God is needy somehow. He needs to have His way. And if He doesn't have His way, that maybe He's going to punish us because He doesn't get His way. And that's an erroneous view of God. So we need to know that God is infinite. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's hard to put into words because we're finite. Okay, how do we describe the infinite? We're a forever. Forever that way and forever that way and forever that way and forever everywhere, right? Time and space are nothing to Him because He's infinite, beyond. In another way to put it, He is limitless. Limitless. What does that mean? Well, you think about limitless power, limitless life, limitless righteousness, limitless, what attribute do you want? A forever, anything you want, life. He gives lives to all creation. The Apostle Paul says we move and have our being because of Him. And He sets the boundaries of all nations. He says in South Padre Island, up to here, that's it. Of all the oceans, of all the world. That's limitless power. In limitless wisdom. Limitless wisdom. Think about that. Any one of those that we can just kind of meditate, and it's like, okay, I'm in space now. If we really think that, so that He's infinite. As you see the title up on page 33, God is infinite and self-existent, self-sufficient, needs nothing, needs no one. He's self-sufficient, self-reliant. And as we go through these passages, we're going to see that. And why is that important? Again, because He doesn't need us. He does not, as much as we know that everybody else needs a needy, they're needy. So what do you want from me? I mean, especially if you've been hurt in some way over the years, over the whatever experiences that you've had. We all have a certain suspicion inside when we talk to anyone and, what do you want from me? I love you. Oh, yeah? We care for you. The banking commercials, right? Really? No, you want my money. There's this certain suspicion that's there. And again, without knowing it, we carry that over to God. And we need to know, no, God is infinite. Limitless in everything. And so if He doesn't need us, that can be threatening, right? When we go to somebody and they don't need us, we're kind of on the deficit side. We're kind of on the vulnerable side. But if somebody needs us, we're on the strength side, right? We have assets that we can share and give because we're coming from a position of strength. But if we get to somebody and they do not need anything from us, probably the first word that will come out of our mouth, if we are honest, is please. Because they don't need anything from us. Please give me a job. Please listen to me. Please consider what I have to say. I know you don't need anything from me. And you see, when we approach God, that's what we need to understand. And in many situations, and I want to say religions, there's the assumption that God needs something from us. Okay, God, you want something from me? You want a sacrifice from me? That's what you want. You want a sacrifice? Okay, I'll give you a sacrifice. But here comes this bargaining, right? Here comes this bargaining. Nah, there's no bargaining with the infinite God, who's self-existent, self-sufficient. So as we go through these passages, just know that, and again, I want to mention, as I've said before, when I go through these passages, we're not doing an exposition, we're not doing an exegetical work here, we're very technical. No. In fact, this booklet is designed so that you can read through them and ask the Lord to help you, to say, okay, Lord, what thoughts come, what can you give me? What can you want to show me through these verses? So that's really what we're doing here. We're going through some of these attributes and just list some verses. These are not all the verses on each one of these attributes. And just kind of draw something from them, right? And tonight we're here that God is infinite, self-existence. We start off with 1 Kings 8 and verse 27. And the context of 1 Kings 8 is when Solomon is dedicating the temple of God. And he dedicates a temple, and in the dedication, all the priests are there and everything, and all of a sudden, the Shekinah glory, God's presence comes in the form of a cloud, and the cloud is overwhelming. Overwhelming to the point that the priests can't even do their job. Stand aside, man. And that's what happens. And at the end, or towards the end, Solomon says this verse right here. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 27. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain thee. How much less this house which I have built? It's only God's faithfulness to his own word that anyone can even commune with him. Solomon's saying, oh my goodness, you're bigger than heaven, you're higher than the highest heaven. But God, in his faithfulness to his word, came down and they got to experience God. King Solomon knew of the Lord's infinity. Heaven, all earth, the heavens, the highest heavens cannot contain you, man. You're forever. So Solomon, David's son, knew of the Lord's infinity. Psalm 145, verse 3. Psalm 145, verse 3. Great is the Lord and highly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. His greatness, and by greatness there again, every attribute that you can think about God, it's just limitless. God is infinite. A direct biblical statement. Jeremiah 23, verse 24. Can a man hide himself in a hiding place? So I do not see him, declares the Lord. Do I not fill the heavens and the earth, declares the Lord? Omnipresence. Present everywhere, which means there is no limit to his presence at any time. Limitless. You know, demons, even Satan, are limited. They're not omnipresent. They're not present everywhere. So sometimes you read in the scriptures where demons are localized. A group of demons can be localized in a dark place, right? And they cannot be everywhere. But God, He's infinite, everywhere, at all times. Can't hide from him. Well, where can you go that you can hide from me, declares the Lord? You can't. I'm infinite. Psalm 139. It's a beautiful, beautiful psalm. Verse 7 through 10. Where can I go from thy spirit? And where can I flee from thy presence? And here there is the highs and the lows. And these highs and the lows are not just highs and lows. It can be from negative to positive, from being in heaven to being in hell, from being in the wilderness to being in the place of blessing, from, in our own life, in our own experiences. And so the psalmist says, if I'm tasting hell, you're there with me. If I'm tasting heaven, you're there with me. And that's the point. And if we understand that, it can be a great comfort when we're going through real bad times. You see, when confusing times, painful times, or great ecstasy, we don't want to forget that God is there. And so Psalm 139, where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from thy presence? If I ascend to heaven, the highest good, there art thou. If I make my bed in Sheol, the place of the dead, thou art there. If I take the wind from the dawn was looking towards the east, maybe fleeing from the Middle East down to, China or Japan, past in the dawn. If I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, now that's to the west, and the context is Israel. So the east goes towards China, towards Japan. The sea, the Mediterranean Sea, you go to the west. And so the end of the day, the beginning of the day or the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even there thy hand will lead me, and thy right hand will lay hold of me. Thy right hand, meaning the omnipotence, power of God. So the psalmist is saying, this infinity of yours, God, wow, you're everywhere. And your infinite power, you'll take hold of me. Omnipotence, present everywhere, which means there is no limit to his understanding as well. No limit to his understanding. Because again, that we need to understand that know that because how many times do you and I feel like no one understands me? I'm all alone. No, with God, his understanding is infinite, limitless. Job 11, 7 through 10. Can you discover the depth of God? Can you discover the limits of the Almighty? They're high as the heavens. What can you do? Deeper than Sheol. What can you know? Its measure is longer than the earth and broader than the sea. If he passes by or shuts up or calls an assembly, who can restrain him? God is absolute in every holy way and limitless in his power. We in the U.S. think, okay, we need to stay ahead of the nuke race, right? If we have enough nukes, then they'll respect us. God says, nukes? You need what again? What is that? Drop in the bucket. Nothing. God is limitless in power, infinite. Exodus 3:14, that great passage when God has called Moses, and Moses is reluctant, and so finally he convinces us, and then Moses says, what's your name, God? I don't even know your name. And look at the way God answers. Exodus 3, verse 14, and God said to Moses, I am who I am. That's your name? I am who I am? What kind of name is that? I am who I am. And he said, Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me. It would take a long time to explain this whole thing, right, of the I am, but here, just one sentence. The one who exists before time exists now and will exist after time is no more. It all is in the presence for him. Okay, that just blows our mind, right? It's always a billion years ago, today, a billion years from now, God is. Not God was a billion years ago, God is now and will be a billion years from now. No. A billion years ago, God is. Now, God is. A billion years from now, God is. I am the ever-living one. God couldn't describe any more of himself because he's infinite. Time and space are nothing to him. I know it's hard to wrap our little brains around that, right? Okay, we're out there in the stratosphere somewhere, but that's that's the sense. I am who I am. That's my name. That's my nature, right? Name. That's the nature. Always been, is, will be, and so. Remember when Jesus answered the Jews? Abraham looked forward to see my day, and he was glad to see it. Abraham was 2,000 years ago. What do you mean? He saw your day. Jesus' answer was what? Before Abraham was, I am. Ooh, they didn't like that answer. They took up stones to kill him because he was claiming to be the great I am of the Old Testament. Before Abraham was, I am, ever will be. Which, by the way, let me just make a pause here. This is an aside. This is not part of this, but I thought at some point in the messages I need to bring this out. Some of us have heard the phrase, the Mother of God. The Mother of God, Mary. Jesus existed way before Mary. How can Mary be the Mother of God when Jesus existed way, way before Mary? Oh, but Jesus is God. Yeah, Jesus is God, but Jesus was way before Mary. So to say the Mother of God is a little off the mark, right? Yes, Jesus took on flesh, but he had no mother. Jesus, the man part, yes, but the infinite Jesus, Mary needed to be an infinite virgin from all eternity. No, Mary was finite. That's also hard to kind of process that, right? But just a little technical thing there. Psalm 90 verse 2. Psalm 90 is one of my favorite psalms. It's a great psalm when somebody has passed away, I know, with my own daughter, with my brother, with my mom. This is one of the psalms that brings me back to reality. And it has to do again with the fact that God is infinite. Psalm 90 verse 2, before the mountains were born, or thou didst give birth to the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. From eternity past to eternity future, God is. And in that psalm, Psalm 90, point is, and man is not. God is infinite and man is not. And so man needs to be connected to the infinite for ultimate meaning in life. Man needs to be connected to the infinite so that he will have a sense of meaning in life. Because apart from the infinite, we are all finite, and when we die, that's the end of it. But if we're connected to the infinite, in terms of purpose and salvation, time, and living for Him, then there's meaning in life. There's something bigger to live for than just our puny little life here. I was talking to a young person, and they were talking about fulfillment. Nothing fulfills me. Nothing. And they were thinking about living with this person and living with that person and buying a certain car and having a certain career and having money and having all these things. But now I'm realizing nothing fulfills. I said, well, you're focusing on the wrong thing. As long as you focus on being fulfilled, you're going to lose. Because you're just using things, you're even thinking that God doesn't fulfill because your main focus is fulfillment. No. Fulfillment is a result of something else. What is that something else? Well, what were we made for? What were we made for as human beings? We were made to glorify God. We were made to worship and serve the great I am. And that's what needs to be our focus. And as long as we focus on honoring, glorifying God, then as a result, as a byproduct, we get to experience some of the fulfillment in life. And ultimately we will in heaven, but right now our focus is not on our own fulfillment. It's going to get us in trouble. We need to be connected to the infinite God and His infinite purpose to have meaning in life. And I said, all of life, all of creation, whether it's sex, whether it's food, whether it's education, whether it's new things, they're only to be a little taste of God, not God. But once we reverse that, once we say, my fulfillment is the highest point, well, that even God, I want to use even God to fulfill me. Nope, that's not going to work. The finite needs to submit and acknowledge the infinite person of God and live accordingly. And then there's going to be some taste of fulfillment, ultimate fulfillment in heaven, not here. But if the focus is on fulfillment, trouble. So Moses, I think at the end of his life, he wrote Psalm 90. Moses had seen over 1 million funerals. And he contemplated life. And what did he conclude? From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. And we need to connect with the fact that God is infinite and submit ourselves to that attribute of God. Deuteronomy 32, verse 40. Deuteronomy 32, verse 40. Indeed, I lift up my hand to heaven and say, as I live forever. That's God talking. And if when you read Deuteronomy 32, this is again Moses writing his song, saying, man, God judges. And God says, I'm infinite in judgment. I'm infinite in power. I break. I heal. I cause this. I cause that. And who can stop me? Either we get angry with that or we submit ourselves to Him and say, oh God, you are so awesome, so great. And that's the point there of Deuteronomy 32, verse 40. Indeed, I lift up my hand to heaven and say, as I live forever, God has infinite power to judge and save. Judge and save. Isaiah 44, verse 6. Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am the first and I am the last, and there is no God besides me. God needs no one. There is no God, but all need him. God needs no one, but all need God. Don't you just hate that? When we come across someone that doesn't need us, we become a little edgy. Like, don't they need something from me so I can feel good about myself? No. Wow, God doesn't need anything from me. But if he doesn't, then he's pretty secure, and I can go to him with anything. I can go to him with anything. I don't have to perform. I don't have to prove anything. He's not going to ask something that because he needs me. I need him, and I need to acknowledge that. Job 35, verse 6 through 8. If you have sinned, what do you accomplish against him? And if your transgressions are many, what do you do to him? If you are righteous, what do you give him? Or what does he receive from your hand? Your wickedness is for a man like yourself, and your righteousness is for a son of man. In other words, again, God doesn't need... You can be the best person in the world. You think that's going to change God? You can be the worst wicked person in the world. You think that's going to change God? God doesn't need anything. You're bad, you're good. Now, he loves us, right? And he cares for us, but he doesn't need anything from us. God does not need our righteousness, nor can we change him by our goodness or badness. He's totally independent, self-reliant. And again, we can get a little edgy about that because we don't have anything on him. Nada. He is infinite and self-existing. Jeremiah 10:10, but the Lord is the true God. He's the living God and the everlasting King. At his wrath, the earth quakes, and the nations cannot endure his indignation. My goodness. God's rule has been and is forever, and so limitless in authority, so that the nations cannot handle him. I was listening to a video, and Haley, our U.S. ambassador, was saying some pretty bold words. I mean, pretty bold words. I'm not saying she's right, she's wrong. I'm just saying, wow, she was asking pretty authoritative, and she didn't care. Well, and who's Haley? She's a pure little sinner. That's all. Need of Christ. Can you imagine God? My goodness. And that's what he's saying here. The nations cannot endure his indignation. They can't handle him. The infinite God that he is. Limitless in authority. Acts 17, verse 24-25. The God who made the world and all things in it, since he is the Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands. Neither is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all life and breath and all things. God is the source of life itself, and thus totally self-sufficient, needing nothing. Once again, this issue of infinity, that God is infinity, keeps bringing up this limitless in everything, and so doesn't need us at all. John 5:26, for just as the Father has life in himself, even so he has given to the Son also to have life in himself. What is Jesus saying? Jesus has the same limitless life that the Father has. Jesus is infinite as well. Though he took on flesh, but he's always been infinite. You see? Psalm 147:5, great is the Lord and abundant in strength. His understanding is infinite. Infinite. Omniscience, which is a big word that says all-knowing. God knows all things, that is limitless in knowledge. We're discovering all kinds of new things, whether it's biology, nanotechnology. In any field, there is unbelievable amount of knowledge that's being is just exploding. I mean, if you want to specialize on something, there's infinite amount of literature out there, it seems like. Books and books and books and books and books on a specialty of a specialty of a specialty of a specialty. And God is infinitely much more than that in any area of knowledge. Wow. You see, but most of the time we don't think of God like that, right? We kind of, okay, he's powerful, but he knows a lot, but no, he's infinite. Infinite in knowledge. Isaiah 66 verse 1, I mentioned this past Sunday, thus says the Lord, the heavens is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where then is the house you could build for me? And where is the place that I may rest? For my hand has made all these things. Thus all these things came into being, declares the Lord. But to this one, that is a mind-boggling thing. But to this one will I look, to him who is humble and contrite of spirit, and who trembles at my word. This is the most astonishing statement. All that we've said about the infinity of God, that he is forever in righteousness and knowledge and everything. I mean, think of the greatest genius in all the world. The most powerful man in the whole world. The most anything of anything, the greatest athlete. Think someone that could encompass all of those. Can you imagine that person paying attention to you? We'd pee on our pants. Listening to me? We just go crazy. Somebody that powerful and that infinite? Well, here, in Isaiah 66, this infinite being says to this one, will I pay attention? Wow. And who's that? The one who is humble and contrite of spirit and trembles at my word. This infinite God will listen to some sinner like me when I humble myself and I say, Lord, your word is my absolute authority. I utterly, completely respect you. God says, I'm infinite, but I'll pay attention to you. Wow. Isn't that awesome to just think about that? Wow. Acts 17 again, just add a little bit more. And this is Paul talking in Athens. A lot of heathens, but they were thinkers, and they had some theology as well. And Paul is saying, look, let me straighten up a couple of things. Let me make some comments. And so he says, the God who made the world and all things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, neither is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all life and breath and all things. And he made from one every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation, that they should seek God, if perhaps they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and exist, as even one of your own poets have said, for we are all his offspring. God is everywhere and with infinite power and authority determines the times and places of all peoples. My goodness, the power, infinite power of God. Now, if you and I can start meditating and thinking about that and say, how do I approach God? Do I approach him with the same way that I approach another human being? Maybe afraid, a little skeptical, that maybe he wants something from me, he needs something from me? Or do I approach him with, oh my God, I am super needy. I know that I'm scared to death. I know that I'm all worried. I know that I'm scratching and clawing to get meaning and get respect and people to look at me. But you, God, you're infinite in all aspects. God, do you even listen to me, God? Billy Graham says, I want to ask God, and he was old already when he said this. God, why? Why did you choose me? Why are you using me? I'm just a sinner, God. This is Billy Graham. When we understand that God is infinite, we come to realize if I take one more breath, because he allows me to take one more breath, this infinite God is more than I deserve. That's one reaction. The other reaction is anger, because we cannot control God and he doesn't need us. And many people react that way. The Bible shows us this infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite authority of God, he uses as means to save us, to bring us to himself, so that we can get to know him. Know him. Not just know about him, but know him as a person who loves us. God help us.